The main thing I would say to take for the government here is that this isn't the first set of railway strikes we've had recently. We had the whole period from 2016 to 2019, where it seemed like there was a new strike every other month. Every time there's a big national sporting event, you get the threat of strikes hanging over us. And it is very clear that the railway unions are using their position to basically their position of leverage over the government to extract things that they want. So from my point of view, the very clear step to take is to decrease that leverage. And I think there are two useful ways you can go about this. The first is that where it's possible, you should be automating systems to the greatest extent that you can, because that means you can replace these relatively skilled workers with relatively unskilled workers, which means you can replace them much quicker if they go out on strike. And the second is, as the government is already taking steps to do, making it legal to hire agency workers and having these replacement staff come in. I'm aware I'm talking at length here, so cut me off if you want to. But there is an interesting point here, which is that a lot of the staff on strike today are going to be signal staff who are obviously quite essential to the running of the railway.
Yeah.
And they sort of take about 12 weeks up to train, so it's quite hard to bring people in on that. So my suggestion would be that you could have people trained to almost act as a reservist for this, the sort of people who might otherwise volunteer for the TA, to keep critical national infrastructure running at times of strikes and make sure that unions can't hold the country to ransom.
Sam, do you think Boris has got it in him? Because, I've got to be honest with you, I'm not sure that he's banged behind net zero, but, he seemed to get behind that rather quickly, especially when her indoors was going on about it, wasn't he? I'm not convinced that he is. I'm not Boris bashing here for people get on to me in the inbox about this, but I'm concerned that he might just give in.
I think he's unlikely to give in on this one simply because it's the Treasury who don't want to give him the pay rise.
Right.
And the Treasury tends to get what it wants. So, but I do think he may lack the stomach for a protracted conflict. And so what he'll end up doing, sort of not giving way, but not actually doing anything to bring it to a close. And we'll have this horrendous summer of strikes and discontent.
What can we do about Mick Lynch, who's been kind of rabble-rousing on this one, kind of a pound shop trot, as I called him, a poor man's Arthur Scargill. Well, he's not a poor man, actually. He's a very rich man's Arthur Scargill. He's on about 124 grand a year and has been, I think, for quite a while now. What can we do about him? Because he's trying to turn it into a class war. Do you think there is a class war, Sam?
I don't think it's a class war, but, he's doing his job. His job is to advocate for his members, so I'm not particularly angry at it. I think, again, it's what we should be doing is reducing their leverage to be able to act in this sort of way. The point of a union is to be obstructive and awkward. It's our fault for letting them have such a critical place in the country that they can cut us off like this.
OK. I mean, the fact is, though, these people say they're on the side of the workers. One of the concerns that I've got, Sam, is that this is going to pave the way for what could come next. So we could see now that maybe the RMT leads in the strike action, and then we end up with teachers, and we do end up with barristers. I think the barrister thing is almost definitely going to happen, by the way. And then, where does it end then? Nurses, for example, binmen. I mean, we're one step away from gravediggers at that point, aren't we, Sam? Are you concerned that it is going to be a real summer of discontent? Because if it is, Boris has to put his foot down now to nip this in the bud.
I think there's a reasonable chance that the unions will sort of go for this, yeah. One thing to sort of mention this is, as you say, these are all public sector unions, because I think only about 13% of the private sector workforce is unionised. It's somewhere around 50% of the public sector. So it's a much bigger problem for them. And they're negotiating directly with the government. So you end up with this weird situation where civil servants who are themselves members of unions are asked to make policy to sort of limit the power of the unions to extract things they want, which I think possibly may not work out as well as you...
Well, technically, and I think I suppose maybe it's well. So technically, I'm in a union. It's the National Union of Journalists, but I mean, I have absolutely naff all to do with it. I think I pay them about 12 quid a month for them to do. Stop it, you! They pay about 12 quid a month for them to do naff all. There was one time very early on in my career when I put one phone call in. Nothing really happened, and we move on. To be honest with you, I kind of forgot I was a member of that, actually. But so it's worthwhile noting, but there's difference, isn't there? There's differences in unions. There's unions and unions, aren't there, Sam? Just very lastly for you, would you give them any pay rise whatsoever? Because I think this is the crux of it, isn't it? Well, it's one of the crux of it. Is there actually any truth to what they're demanding?
I mean, I don't think it's entirely unreasonable that they get some rise. I think 3% was a figure mooted. But as long as they go through the efficiency measures that come alongside that, which is obviously what they don't like, no, I'm not averse to that as long as we can sort of decrease their stranglehold in the country.